These cops cost their city $8.5 million and got promoted. That's the title of today's video from Audit the Audit. Let's jump right into it.
Nevada resident Asili Lagervale and her daughters, Asili and Ate, arrived in Castro Valley, California after driving through the night so that Asili and Ate could attend their college classes. Ms. Lagervale parked her rental vehicle in a handicapped parking space with a visible placard on the rearview mirror in a parking lot outside of a Starbucks location. The Lagervales were resting in the vehicle and preparing to enter the Starbucks to get coffee and use the restroom when Deputy Stephen Holland and Deputy Monica Pope of the Alameda County Sheriff's Office approached the vehicle. The interaction that followed was captured on Deputy Holland's body camera.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Fine.
What are you guys doing here?
Waiting to go to Starbucks in a second. Why? Is there a problem? I can't sit here.
Well, actually, let me tell you why I'm here. Okay. I've been having auto break-ins in this parking lot every morning around this time.
Thank you very much.
So I've been driving around here. Okay. And I noticed that you guys aren't doing nothing but hanging out.
Yeah, I just got in from Vegas.
Okay. Well,
this morning. I've been driving all night.
Okay.
It takes 8 hours to get here.
Well, relax. That's my reason why I'm talking to you.
Okay, so right off the bat, the cop indicates that he is only coming up and talking to the individuals in the car because there are break-ins in the area. If you've watched this channel before, you know that a police officer can only temporarily detain you if they have reasonable suspicion that you just committed a crime or a crime is in the process of being committed. However, a police officer can come up and just talk to you for whatever reason they want. Now, that doesn't mean you have to talk to them, and that doesn't mean you are being detained. So here the police officer came up to these individuals. I highly doubt that they have any reasonable suspicion at this time, but they're within their rights to communicate and see if these people will voluntarily give up any information.
It's not a Nevada car.
No, I'm not Nevada. I'm
You have your ID on you?
Yeah. Okay, so wait a minute. Now, why are you asking for my ID? You just explained to me about the break-in.
Right.
But why did you explain to me about my ID? What did I do? What kind of crime did I commit?
What kind of crime did you commit?
Yeah, I'm asking
you haven't
asked you for my ID.
Yeah, you have to give me your ID.
Why do I have to give you my?
That isn't necessarily true. While it's going to depend state by state, generally, if the police officer does not have any reasonable suspicion, there is no obligation to identify yourself. Now, if they do have reasonable suspicion, which disclaimer is a fairly low bar, and then you refuse to identify yourself, that could be another crime in and of itself. But it's all predicated on there being reasonable suspicion. So I'm watching the same thing y'all are. I don't see any reasonable suspicion that this police officer has. Therefore, the request to require the ID probably isn't lawful.
I have to give you my ID because I haven't did anything. You started talking about a break-in.
Okay.
I thanked you for informing me that.
Right.
I informed you that I'm resting because I'm about to go into Starbucks, right? I informed you I've been driving all night, right?
Well, Starbucks has been open for about 2 hours.
It's actually.
So what? So what if Starbucks is open for 2 hours? She's been driving through the night. She's within her rights to park and rest.
It's been open since 5. I checked my GPS. Okay.
Are you doing anything wrong?
No, I'm not.
So then what's the big deal?
I don't have to give you my ID.
The big deal is you are potentially infringing on her rights. That's a big deal.
I know the law. I don't have to give you my ID. I'm not doing anything wrong.
Deputy Holland orders Ms. Lagervale to show him her ID, and Ms. Lagervale argues that she does not have to provide identification because she has not done anything wrong. California does not have a stop and identify statute that criminally sanctions an individual's refusal to identify themselves to the police during a lawful Terry stop. And even if it did, it is likely that a court would conclude that the officers did not have reasonable suspicion to detain Ms. Lagervale and her daughters on suspicion of the...
Right, exactly. And one more thing on top of what Audit the Audit said, I highly doubt that this was even a legal Terry stop because there's no corroborating evidence. It'd be one thing if the police officer had a description of the minivan with a license plate and, you know, this is the van that has been suspected of all these break-ins, but without any sort of corroborating evidence, they don't have any reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion is more than just a hunch. You can't just say, well, there are break-ins around this time. I have no idea if it's you, but I'm going to detain you regardless. That ain't gonna fly.
As the officers later revealed that the suspects in these incidents were black males, and Ms. Lagervale clearly explained that she and her daughters were about to go into Starbucks. Section 12951 of the California Vehicle Code states that the driver of a vehicle, quote, shall have the valid driver's license issued to him or her in his or her immediate possession at all times when driving a motor vehicle upon a highway, and, quote, shall present his or her license for examination upon demand of a peace officer enforcing the provisions of this code. However, while Ms. Lagervale was parked in her vehicle, she was not driving. Likewise, Section 22511.56 of the California Vehicle Code requires that an individual using a disabled placard, like Ms. Lagervale was, quote, shall, upon request of a peace officer, present identification and evidence of the issuance of that placard to that person. Here, Deputy Holland did not request evidence pertaining to the issuance of the placard. Instead, he only requested Ms. Lagervale's identification, and did so in the context of investigating the vehicle break-ins rather than confirming the validity of Ms.
Yeah, that's right. I was about to say, I'm not so much concerned about the driving issue or the handicap sticker issue, because that's clearly not what the police officer's intent was. They are investigating these break-ins. And again, this all goes back to answering the questions, are these individuals detained, temporarily detained? And I would argue yes, because this police officer clearly makes them feel like they are not allowed to leave. And if that's the case, in order to temporarily detain someone, you need that reasonable suspicion. And there clearly is no reasonable suspicion for the underlying action. Therefore, all of this nonsense is BS.
I'm not doing anything wrong.
So what you're doing now is leading me to believe that you might be doing something wrong.
No, I'm not doing that, so don't try to trump up no charges. I saw like get your phone out, start recording.
Why are you getting so worked up?
Because I gotta have protection. Because I don't know where this is about to go. I gotta have protection.
That is such fucking bullshit by the cop. What do you mean you're getting worked up? Asserting your rights cannot be used against you. It cannot. And anybody who has any interest in justice supports that. She is right, and you are giving her every reason to do what she's doing.
Well, it's not going to go anywhere if you cooperate. Everything's being recorded.
Exactly, and I'm not doing anything. That's what did you hear me tell my daughters? Start recording as well.
So why are you making this a big deal? This could be a completely positive encounter.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm not going to give you my ID because I haven't done anything.
Do you have a valid driver's license?
Yes, I do.
So are you going to refuse to give me your ID?
I am, because I haven't done anything. Call your superior. Call your supervisor.
I don't have to do that.
Yes, you do have to do that. Make sure you record that, because I'm going, as soon as I leave here, I'm going to 150th, and I'm going to the Sheriff's Department. We're being harassed for nothing.
It's not harassment.
Yes, it is harassment.
Well, guess what? I'm not in any rush. I can hang out here till you want to give me your ID.
I'm not. I want you to call your sheriff. I want you to call me or call your superior.
So this language that the officer is using, you're not free to leave, I can hang out here, they are clearly being temporarily detained, which all, again, confirms my theory about, the lack of reasonable suspicion. And, we just work down that flow chart.
Well, hold on.
Call 911. Call 911.
What is going on here? No, we're not doing that. Okay, everyone in this car is detained. You can go back in the car and wait, or you can go in handcuffs and go in my car. Okay, sit in the car or you're going in handcuffs. I'm not dealing with this.
Handcuffs for what? Yeah,
31 Animal. Start us up there.
That was one of the things. You're being really too excessive right about now. You're being real excessive right now. That's one of the reasons why we stopped here, too. For me to get coffee, and I was telling her to get up so she could go to the restroom. You're not going to do that. You're not going to violate and victimize us.
They don't want to listen to us, so let's go ahead and detain these two.
No, you're not going to detain them. We haven't did anything. We have not did anything.
Start the car. Get out of the car.
No.
Get out of the
car.
car.
Roll the window down.
Get out of the car.
No, I'm rolling the window down.
Get out of the car.
No, I'm not. I'm rolling the window down.
Get out of the car.
I'm rolling the window down. I'll get out. Just don't pull on me. I'll get out.
All right.
If y'all have followed this channel before, I often cite the case, Pennsylvania versus Mims, which says if a police officer orders you out of the car, you have to get out of the car. Now, the one caveat to that is the underlying stop needs to be legal. Here, I think there's a very strong argument that the underlying stop is not legal. So therefore, his order to get her out of the car is not a lawful order. But I'm going to stop y'all and let's talk about not the legal side, but the practical side of this. If a police officer is ordering you out of the car and you are refusing because you believe it is an unlawful order, this is not the place where you want to fight. You want to fight in the courtroom. You're not going to win this fight right here. So I know it's unfair and I know it's hard to stomach, but if I'm her, I'm cooperating and getting out of the car and then lawyering up and suing them.
This is your last chance to get out of the car, or I'm placing you.
No, you're not placing me under arrest.
Or I'm placing you under arrest.
I'm calling someone.
Get out of the car.
I am. You don't have to pull me. I'm getting out now.
Get out.
Stop it.
Then get out.
Stop it.
Stand right here. Put your hands behind your back. You're being detained.
No, I'm not being detained. For what?
You're being detained.
For what?
Put your hand behind your back, or you're gonna go to jail.
No, I'm not going to jail. We're getting an attorney right now. Record everything. We're getting an attorney.
You're not following any of my instructions.
We haven't done anything. Don't worry. Don't worry. I said y'all think.
Put your hands behind your back, or you're going to jail.
We haven't
Put
done
your hands
anything.
behind your
You're
back,
gonna get
or
fired.
you're going to jail.
Don't worry.
That's fine.
We have a lawsuit. I asked for a supervisor.
Grab a seat.
This is not how things work, ma'am.
No, what are you talking about? This out. We haven't done anything.
Kick your feet in.
We haven't.
You don't demand what we do.
No, I'm not demanding anything.
Right now, you're not putting your foot in the car.
I'm asking you.
You're not following our instructions.
Resisting.
I'm asking you a question. Why am I being arrested?
Right now, you're being arrested because you're
But
not
what did I
listening
do
to
to
us.
be arrested? What led up to this? Can you answer that honestly? You cannot.
You won't let me. You won't stop.
Oh no, they're searching. Clearly, these police officers don't have probable cause because I don't even think they have reasonable suspicion. So if this police officer is about to start searching their stuff, we have a big problem.
Deputy Holland opens the rental vehicle door and appears to search at least one bag which was located inside the sedan. Later in this interaction, the officers search the entire vehicle, including the trunk and all three Lagervales' purses, and obtain their identification cards. In general, the Fourth Amendment requires officers to obtain a warrant before searching a vehicle. However, there are several exceptions to this warrant requirement, and officers typically have the authority to conduct a warrantless search of a vehicle with
That's right. A warrantless search of a vehicle is subject to the automobile exception of the Fourth Amendment. However, again, this is all predicated on it being a lawful arrest. This was clearly not the case. I'm sure the audit's about to explain that.
the valid consent of the driver or owner, as required by exigent circumstances, incident to a lawful arrest, and when they have probable cause that the vehicle contains evidence of criminal activity. Significantly, these exceptions do not authorize the search of a vehicle to obtain an individual's identification when they refuse to provide it. Although the Supreme Court of California upheld the, quote, limited search of the glove compartment, the area underneath the driver's seat, and the area beneath the front passenger seat for an individual's identification when the individual refused to identify themselves and the officer, quote, was preparing to issue a traffic citation and therefore needed to learn the true identity of the person to be cited in the 2002 case of In Re Arturo D., none of the Lagervales were being cited for a traffic violation in this situation. Notably, although the Arturo D. case was considered good law at the time this encounter occurred, it was later overruled in the 2019 case of People v. Lopez, where the Supreme Court of California recognized that California was the only state to have recognized, quote, an exception to the Fourth Amendment's warrant requirement for suspicionless traffic stop vehicle searches, and that, quote, the desire to obtain a driver's identification following a traffic stop does not constitute an independent categorical exception to the Fourth Amendment's warrant.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Obviously, I'm not a California lawyer, but there's literally case law on point that is very relevant to this discussion.
Accordingly, as the officers did not search the vehicle under a recognized exception to the warrant requirement, a court would almost certainly conclude that the search of the vehicle was unconstitutional.
So behind me is the lawsuit that the Lagervales filed against the officers individually and also the police department as a whole. As you can see here, the causes of action are Section 1983 actions, which is for civil rights violations. Additionally, we have assault, battery, false arrest, imprisonment, invasion of privacy, negligence, and some California Civil Code violations.
Unanimously ruled in favor of the Lagervales and awarded them a total of $8.25 million in damages. Specifically, the jury held Deputy Holland and Alameda County jointly liable to Asili for $2.75 million in damages and to Eate and Asili for $2 million each.
This is wonderful. Good for the Lagervales. I hope this gave them a little bit of justice that they needed. However, anybody watching this should be pissed off because this money is coming from the taxpayers. But that doesn't mean that bad police officers shouldn't be held accountable.
As of the time of writing this episode, the Alameda County Sheriff's Office has not announced any disciplinary action against Deputy Holland or Deputy Pope. In fact, both deputies have been promoted since this incident occurred. Overall, the Alameda
That's really upsetting because the Lagervilles in this situation didn't do anything wrong. Things like this are really disheartening because a lawyer can only help retroactively after this kind of BS happens. They didn't do a single thing wrong, yet they were still treated like that. They lawyered up and they got the justice they deserve. I make these videos so people can know their rights, and if you find yourself in a situation like that, you know what to do, and God forbid still something bad happens, you go hire a lawyer. It just makes me upset that there's no responsibility on these police officers' ends of things because the taxpayers are going to be the one who end up funding this settlement. All right, that's it for today's video. Bye.
Big verdict.